Welcome back to Reconfiguring Reality. I'm Jesse.
I'm Laura.
I'm the Jericho.
And I'm Josh.
And today's topic is single parenting.
Okay, so where do we want to start?
Uh, do-
I suggested the topic of single mom syndrome, and in my mind, I wanted to talk about the single mothers or fathers that use their children as leverage to get more child support, to get public assistance, to get food stamps. They use their children as leverage. They continue to
okay.
have children in order to keep all of this.
Oh, Baby Factory. I don't know those
Yeah,
people.
that is what I had in mind when we first, months and months ago, talked about the topic.
I don't remember us talking about this topic, but
But
I don't know. It's been a while.
upon talking more and more about the topic and looking for things to like focus on for this topic, I found several other things that were more interesting, like um, single parent stress syndrome. It's an actual thing, or
Mm.
toxic mother traits, or just general stressors of being a single parent. And it's weird, not weird, I guess I should not be surprised, but I found a lot of stuff on single mom, single mom. But
Because and I will say is because probably 95% of all judges and or court cases believe a child is better off with their mother than their father, which is not always true all the time.
right, and the one reason I wanted my husband to be here for this topic is because he was a single dad.
Oh, I can speak on that topic because of the fact that if my dad would have had custody of us, our lives would have been totally different.
Yeah, you had said something before the podcast about children being raised with a father figure.
Yeah, well, so I found, hold on, where did it go? So all I did was put single mom syndrome. And it's a single mom syndrome is a negative term that implies that children without fathers in the home are less likely to succeed and that single mothers are usually overbearing. It's the AI overview you get from Google or whatever.
Oh, right.
Because I've never heard of single mom syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I heard that, I was like, oh, it's when a wife feels like she's a single mom even though she's married.
Got it.
Like, because that's how I felt in my marriage at
Well, that's how
times.
I felt when I was still with my ex, the father of my children.
But saying that upsets me. Saying that children without fathers in the home are less likely to succeed because of the fact I didn't I yes, I chose to move back to the state I live in. But that was what was best for me, which would make me healthier, make me happier, which would make me a better mother.
Mm-hmm.
Then when me and my ex were like, okay, he's like, I'm getting out of the military, can you take the children, blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. When I didn't have the kids, I paid him child support even though I did not have a court order at all whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
He made more money than me, well more than me, but I still gave him a shit ton of money that I literally, me and Sean struggled every fucking month to pay bills because he pays child support.
Mm-hmm.
There were times we were worried we couldn't get to and from work because we had to choose between putting groceries in our house or putting gas in our car. And what do you think won? But that's the thing. Like, I didn't have a court order, but I happily struggled to make sure my children had exactly what they needed.
Right.
I sent them Christmas presents. I sent them birthday presents. I will say, in the ex's defense, he was nice enough one time to pay for my plane ticket to and from to come visit the boys. I will give him that. I'm not saying like trying to bash him, but I'm pointing out that when the boys came up here, he's like, "Oh, I'll help when I can." So I bought school supplies, worrying about if I could pay for my rent. I paid for after school childcare because of the fact that I qualified for childcare, but the assistance wasn't there. The funding wasn't there for me.
I'm curious, Jericho. Did you have the same programs offered to you as a single dad that single moms get?
No. So during the period where I was raising my son over the last 25-ish years or so, the laws and rules for men raising children were on paper mostly identical. But there were a few exceptions that behind the scenes with a lot of bias and things that go on. One of which is men don't have a lot of male directed programs. So for example, women have WIC. So they can get milk and other necessities and formula and things. With my son, they just expected me to work harder.
Really?
Wait,
You couldn't get WIC?
you could the WIC
Nope.
so but my understanding of WIC, because I got WIC, even
And you're a
with
woman.
the ex, but it's the women, infant, and children's program, which means after your son was born, he should have qualified because he was an infant. It doesn't matter
Well,
that
he
you were
wasn't
a
an infant at the
man.
time I was raising him. When we separated, he was in kindergarten,
Okay,
going into
see,
it.
so the reason why
Okay.
I can say the reason why you didn't get that is the cutoff age is 5. Or I'm hoping that's why they denied you, was he was 5, and they, after the age of 5, it's cut off even for women.
So,
Unless you have another baby in the house.
Well, yeah.
right. But at the time when he was young, I couldn't get it either because we were together. It was really weird.
But
But
she should have gotten it then.
there are also housing assistance programs when for like HUD and stuff. Being a single dad, I didn't qualify for a lot of that as well.
Why? Because you have a penis?
Well, I don't necessarily say it was just because I was a man per se, but the idea was if I can't afford it, I can't afford it. But the system, the court system, and the legal system largely favors women when it comes to child rearing. Like I had to prove why I wasn't working. A woman can just go in and say, "Hey, I'm unemployed," and meet the basic requirements, and then everything else is just tacked on. I wouldn't say automatically, but I would say it's very little effort.
Actually,
However, as a man, I would constantly have to explain myself why I don't have a job.
in the state of Pennsylvania, when I was a single parent, I had to go through classes and meet with an employment specialist when I did not have a job.
Right.
See,
But
I will say
that's the minority, not the majority. Is
I
what we're talking about.
can agree with him to a point, because so ex and I separated when the oldest was a year old. I moved back home, and my dad helped me lie to a point. Downstairs, he had his own kitchen and everything, him and his wife. And I was like, nope, we live downstairs. You live upstairs. We're not asking you for rent or anything. But this was just to get me food stamps. So I went in. They didn't even ask, oh, are you looking for a job? It's, well, are you getting any child support? And I told him, like, I think he was willing to give me $300 a month, which I didn't know back then was if we were separated, all of his BAH was supposed to come to me because I had the child. He did not.
I don't
But
know
I
what
digress.
BAH is.
Basic housing or basic allowance housing or so.
Oh.
If he was still in the military and he lived up here, we would get a base amount from the military to pay our rent.
Okay.
So that includes, even if we lived on military housing, the money would go to the renting company on base. But I went in there, filled out the paperwork, sat there, didn't ask if I was looking for a job, just asked how much he was giving me for child support. Okay, you're approved, and that was it. I can guarantee you, if Jericho would have went in there back then, oh, it would have been 50 million questions. They would have been judging, glaring at him, because he's a man. He should be able to pull himself up from his bootstraps.
Well, I mean, that stuff alone was, it was the time of the culture. So I never said I would be offended. It was annoying because there's time I needed assistance and I just couldn't get it. But I will tell you the most annoying thing, honestly, was not just financial assistance. It was the lack of confidence. So in the best case scenario, I had people thanking me for doing my job of raising my son. And acting like I'm some 1 in a million miracle, that I'm like the only father who's stuck around, when plenty of dads raise their kids and are in their lives even when the moms are manipulating them, controlling them, and basically holding their kids hostage.
That's what I wanted to focus on in this topic. Those women right there.
And so I'm sure there's men out there that do it too. I don't want to just label women alone. But I'm just saying, from one parent to another parent, the problem was that I wasn't treated as an equal, capable parent. Like, she had mental issues, she needed heavy medications, she refused counseling, she had no real steady job without my influence. And the moment she left, she journeyed down a body dysmorphia path and stopped working and became basically agoraphobic. And this is all for her betterment of health that never has come. And they still were like, this is a 50-50 race on who gets the kid. Like, I had to fight. Like, for example, she got a lawyer to try to take custody from me, and I couldn't afford a lawyer, but a lawyer was willing to work pro bono because she spun a pretty tale about how I was a big meanie guy, having never hit her or anything, but just I'm an unfit parent despite all the things she did, right? So I had to fight a pro bono lawyer looking to cash in and make some extra cred for themselves, by myself, right? These are the type of things I'm talking about. Like, the people, obnoxiously would be like, "Oh, you're such a good dad to take care of him and make sure he has clean clothes and food and stuff." And I'm like, that's the basic requirement of a parent. I don't understand why I'm getting a pat on the back for this. As one, if it's some miracle of things to do. Like, I'm a big proponent for when people are like, "Oh yeah, well, I took care of my kid and I raised them and I kept the house and I did this," and I go, "Well, that's what you're supposed to do. You decided to have a baby, therefore you're responsible for it. That's how it works. You don't get a pat on the back or a participation trophy because you did your job, which you were supposed to." And I don't expect that from anyone either. But the other half of it, the worst end of it, is I would constantly have people sending CPS after me. And not because he showed up abused or bruised or anything. Just, it didn't matter. Just, "Oh, well, he looks skinny. Like, he's like impoverished, he's sickly, whatever." "No, he just is skinny compared to you." I go, "Right, because I'm fat." "So because I'm fat and he's skinny, what, am I starving him? Is that the idea?" "Well, we just want to make sure he's healthy and he's taken care. Does he look unhealthy? Is he not running around and participating in track and doing all that? Has he complained about hunger pains or anything?" "Well, no." I'm like, "Okay, then what's the problem?" Right? And that was it. We were always the charity family. We were always the charity case. And I'd have to be like, and it was routine. Like, literally every single month, they'd be at my door. "Oh, hey, we're just doing a wellness check." "Okay, come on in. Look in the cupboards." They take my son and say, "Can we talk to him?" "Sure can. Go ahead." And they'd be like, "Mikey, what'd you have for dinner last night?" He's like, "Pizza." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Do you like pizza?" And they'd ask me these stupid questions, right? Trying to figure out if I'm making him lie or something. And then he'd be like, "I had pizza." And they go, "What pizza did you have?" He said, "I had a large pepperoni pizza." And they go, "Oh, how many slices you had?" And then he'd be like, "I had a large pepperoni pizza." And like, "You fed your son an entire pepperoni pizza?" I go, "He's hollow inside."
It's
Yes,
just like it's just like me. I sit there and was like, is Titus overeating? The kid's just a freaking bottomless pit, especially when they're going through goddamn growth spurts.
Yep.
exactly. But that was it. Like, literally everywhere I went, it didn't matter. And it didn't matter where I tried to get help from. If I was in a bad way, like one month I just had to pay my phone bill. I was starting a new job, but at the time I didn't get paid for like 3 weeks. So I went to my church and I was like, hey, I really need help paying this phone bill. I've never asked anything of my church before. And I got the full on third degree because I was a guy. Like, why would you need money? What are you doing wrong? Why aren't you working hard enough? Like, and it's funny because on the other hand, people who were had access to like my personal life would see the other side of it. Like when I went to college full time while taking care of my son full time and working a full time job by myself. And they wanted me to write a paper discussing my life so they could put it up on their website and everything and be like, look at this champion. And I was like, no, I'm not doing any of that. But
Jericho, I have a
th-
question
th-
for you.
who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
What, how, what kind of medical insurance did you and your son have when you were raising him?
So on paper, great insurance.
In all actuality.
He had Medicaid or Medicare
Okay.
So
most of
public
the time.
assistance type insurance.
Well, yes and no. So California's a little weird how they do it. Like in my earlier part of our life, we never could afford medical insurance. And once Trump started the whole like, if you can't afford it yet, or Obama's right, one of them two, whichever one started the if you don't have it, you get charged the thing, you know.
I think that
Mm-hmm.
was Obama.
I got charged that for like 2 years before I got insurance and a stable set of jobs where I had that because being a young guy, I was like, why do I ever need insurance?
Right.
And I was like, well, why do I need it for my son? Either I'll just pay for whatever comes up out of pocket, which is what I did because in California, where we lived originally, um, and even when I came to Kansas City, I was in Kansas City, Kansas, which I was in a low income kind of hole in the middle of a really rich city. So
Mm-hmm.
like, there were free clinics that were largely almost free. Like most of the residents who were just starting out and trying to make a name for themselves as doctors would volunteer their time there. So you would go in and pay next to nothing in cash and get treatment. Like every time I went to the doctors, whether it was for something small or something large, it was like just a flat $25 or 35, depending on which clinic I went to. And then if I had medicine or something, it would be like go to Walmart. That way I get up their $4 list or whatever. Like so,
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, lucky me, neither of us had any real medical issues, save for my son one time where he had to go to the hospital, which I ended up paying through the nose for. And once for my ex-wife who stuck me with the bill, which was like 30 grand, which was fun. But similar to a talk we had earlier, not in this conversation, but with you, Jesse, there was one time where they wanted to go after my ex for child support to give us food stamps or assistance. And I said, go for it, but you're not going to get anything. And sure enough, they went after her, and she's like, well, I don't have an income, and I have all these problems, and I'm sick, and all this kind of stuff because she was being taken care of by her boyfriend at the time, who I think they're still together. I don't know. Anyway, but that's my point. Like, and this is the person I'm fighting for custody with is a bum who doesn't have any money, who has all these mental problems, and I don't mean just like casual mental problems or normal like this is somebody who's like seeing and hearing things and refuses to get counseling or meds because she thinks everyone's out to get her. You know what I mean? Like this is a
So she should be involuntarily institutionalized, is what you're
yeah.
saying. Okay.
Like there was a point where she would tell me some of this stuff, and I'm just like, I'm just thinking to myself, like you want, like the custody agreement we ended up settling on was that she could have 30 days a year, and it
And
because
how
it
long did that last until she stopped doing that?
oh no, it lasted all the way up till he was 18.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and her whole goal was to try to get him to move in with her and steal him away and whatever and convince him that I was evil. And she kept trying to drill this stuff into his head about how horrible I was and I was going to do all this weird stuff. And I'm just like, uh huh.
That's not something I
And
ever
I'm
did
just
with
like,
my kids. I never talked bad about their dad to them.
yep.
I just remember being a single parent, trying to get my kids in medical insurance because I was working at a restaurant at the time that didn't offer benefits. And in order to get my oldest medical insurance, I had to go file for child support from their father.
Oh, yeah. The government, I mean, any state or federal agency like that, they're not going to want to foot the bill. they are going to stick it to whoever they can get it to stick to.
But I think that child support, the system, is completely busted. It's not effective. It's not efficient because, like, you go after my ex per se. You go after my ex for child support. He can't pay it, so he ends up in jail where he's still not paying it. What good is that for anybody? And if it's a good father to their children and he misses a child support payment, he's now being threatened to be put in jail and taken away from the kid.
Again,
It
that
doesn't.
depends on the state. My ex was over $2,000 behind, and they didn't threaten him with anything.
Oh yes.
Now he is catching up. Oh,
Yeah, and
but I mean,
shortly
the
before
thing is,
shortly before my oldest turned 18, he called me. At this point, we were civil. You know, we talked every once in a while, and he called me and said, "Hey, baby mama number 3 is coming after me for more child support because he finally had a job at that point, and he got a raise, but he was on short-term disability because he got hurt at work, right?"
mhm.
So, baby mama number 3 is coming after me for more child support. I need you on the phone to fight for more money for the kids because at that time, me, baby mama number 2, was getting $178 a month in child support for 2 children. Baby mama number 3 with 1 child was getting almost $500 a month.
It's again based on state because I have a friend.
We were in the same state.
Oh, that's
We were in
really
the same
weird
state, but
because
we were in different counties.
that still is weird because like a friend of mine lived in Washington State for 2 children. Her ex only paid like the same kind of small amount you got, but baby mama number 2, who lived in Texas, got like triple that amount for 1 child, and I was like, how is that fucking fair?
Yeah, it didn't make sense
at all whatsoever.
It didn't make sense to me to the point where I requested a meeting with the judge and his lawyer. And when I called in, because obviously I'm in a different county and I'm not going to drive 2.5 hours to go to child support court, I told them, without my lawyer present, because I did not have a lawyer, I told them, take me off of this case completely. Drop any child support that man owes me, that he just drop me off. I do not want on this case anymore. Period. I don't want a dime from him. He's not paying me because he's unable to work, and I will not be the reason that man is in jail. So take me off this case completely. And they did. They dropped all the child support. But I had to fight them to do it. It was ridiculous. I didn't want anything from the man to begin with. I got the kids. That was good enough for me. I think that system is broken.
Well, like
I
what?
think I think it's abused more than anything, and I think also it's the same thing as with like alimony and with like divorce court. Like it makes no sense. Some dude who's worth billions and you married him, so now you deserve half when he didn't do a damn thing to earn half. Like that makes no sense. Like the idea that I supported him, well he was earning it plenty fine before you got there. So why do you deserve it now?
It's also the fact that there are cases where let's say a very rich person marries someone as, I want you to be a housewife now. And they're married for 10, 15, 20 years, and then he decides, let's say he wants to leave. So she doesn't have a house to live in anymore. She hasn't worked for 20 years. So she's supposed to what? Just sit there and start all over?
Yeah. She doesn't have funds to start over.
He should at least have to sit there and not necessarily the same lifestyle, because I'm sorry, I give a fuck less if you're used to, I have Gucci and all it, I give a fuck less. Put your big girl panties on and find a skill and a job to do it yourself then, because
that's
everybody is capable of doing it.
I think they should do it similar to when they adjust child support. Like I think it should be like, okay, great, now you're divorced, you're entitled to, I don't know, like 5% of the annual income or whatever, and then we're going to give that to you in monthly payments, for like 3 months. You have 3 months to get your shit together. And after that, they should just be done. Like that should be it.
Well,
Like
it's like,
because being a housewife is not the same thing as being a home
so
gatekeeper. You know what I mean? Like
so
if you have
during
butlers and nannies and all that kind of nonsense, right? Like you're not. What are you doing to keep the home besides lounging
mhm.
about, right?
Well, like in Sean's case with his divorce, his ex has 2 college degrees, but is a waitress. The judge made her admit she was underemployed. And so they had a house. And the judge, she thought she could be like, "Oh, well, yeah, I'll give him his portion of the house whenever I feel like it." So the judge looked at her and said, "No, you have this many years to either sell the house, you have to get it appraised, sell the house, and give him his portion of what is due to him, or you have to refinance the house and give him the portion." Like, this judge was not having it, being like, "No, he deserves his half of that house. You have this many years to figure it out. Otherwise, if she couldn't have figured it out, he had every right to force a sale."
Was she vicious about child support as
Yeah,
well?
she was vicious about child support. She was vicious about me.
Custody?
No,
Yeah. So the funny thing is she fought him tooth and nail. I had to be evaluated and she would not budge that I was not allowed to be alone with children for more than 2 hours. She doesn't give a flying fuck now. She probably prays that if Sean has to go into work on a weekend, he has the kids, that I'll sit there and watch the kids. What Their oldest is probably going to be living with us now because he wants to continue with orchestra and the school he is supposed to go to doesn't offer it.
Mm.
So and like, I don't even think Sean's gonna ask for child support to be reduced or anything like that. It's just, hey, if we need help, I need you to help me. Do I think she's going to? No. That's my opinion though. Cause like I tried to even like I Facebook messaged her and I said, "Well, I'd like for you to get to know me so you're more comfortable with me being around." She's like, "No, I want nothing to do with you." Oh, okay, sorry. Because I sat there, my mom was bipolar and an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
She should not have been raising children at all. Like, she should not have had any of us. We would have had a happier, better life if the judge would have listened to us and let us go live with our father. But grandma and grandpa paid for a great lawyer. And even though I was put in foster care because of my mom bashed my face when I was younger into, those little bars that used to be on the tubs,
Mhm.
to like hold on to push yourself up out of the tub. She bashed my eye into one of those, which is why I have to wear glasses. But I wasn't supposed to tell anybody. But yet they didn't take any of that into consideration because she's the mother. The children should always be with the mother. In most cases, yeah, sometimes that is better, but not all. And that's what really bothers me is like when I decided to leave my ex, my mom was like, "Go for his 401k, go for this, go for that." I was like, "No, cuz I didn't do anything for his 401k. What really upset me though was he was forced out of the military. So he got a buyout package. He gave me 2500 or maybe 3500. He was nice enough, I will admit, to give me the down payment for my car because I needed a safe vehicle to get the kids to and from school, doctor's appointments, whatever. And the car I had, I couldn't afford to keep the upkeep to make it where I felt safe because crap in the rear end was broken. It shook. I didn't care if I got hurt, but if the kids got hurt, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So he was nice enough to give me $2,000 to put down for my car. And he maybe gave me like another 1,000, 1,500, being like, after me having the kids for 6 months and paying everything out of pocket, it was like, "Oh, well, this is for the kids."
Mm.
What? that's gonna get me caught up on all my bills and put groceries in the house. Like, that's what upset me. And like when I wasn't with the kids, I called every single day. Every day. There was like 1 or 2 times where I was so exhausted from work, I accidentally fell asleep and I cried myself to sleep that night because I missed talking to my kids.
We had an arrangement that the kids were supposed to go see him every weekend. We were supposed to meet halfway um, for him to pick up or drop off the kids because we were living 2.5 hours apart. But his car broke down, so I was driving the kids all the way out and then driving all the way out to pick the kids up. Now, if you don't know me, I hate driving. I hate
So
driving
you're
in
like
the
me.
winter as well. Now I'm driving through the mountains of Pennsylvania in the winter, and I got into a car accident with the kids and the puppy in the backseat, and decided that I was never going to drive them all the way again, and that was the last time they spent a weekend with him because he refused to find a way to come get my kids, and then he tried to take me to court for contempt.
Well, it's just like everybody keeps telling me, oh, well, since X doesn't have the kids as much anymore, you need to take them back to court for more child support. It's like, no, I want it in writing so my bosses don't think I'm like lying.
Right.
Like he's hoping to show up next month for like a week and he'd be staying here. I'm not holding my breath, but I will say, like, my mom taught to us, our dad was perfect. He wasn't perfect. We knew he had his flaws, but he loved us all. He treated us all correctly. He let us express ourselves. We could have conversations about things. He knew how our mother was and everything like that, and she would talk so horrible about him in front of us. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, your father's on a pedestal. You guys all think he's perfect. And it's like, no, but he doesn't belittle us. He doesn't, like, I know my mom is the reason why I have BPD. I know that. The way she spoke to me, how I grew up, I'll always have issues now. I still love her, but she kind of, to punish me and my dad, because like my dad isn't my biological father. He never was able to adopt me. Before he passed away, we discussed it, but he didn't have the money for, because we weren't going to do like lawyers or anything like that. But after the age of 18, at least in the state of Minnesota, I did not need my biological father's signature to be adopted. So we were going to try and do it. It was only, I think, like $500, but me and the ex couldn't afford it, and neither could my dad. Like, I didn't find out how bad my dad was struggling trying to pay child support
Mm.
until he was in the hospital and I had to leave because I was sick and I couldn't go in and see him anyway. So it's like, okay. So me and my aunt went and stayed up at my dad's house. So I didn't have to like sleep out in the waiting room in the hospital. And he was behind on every single bill, but he made sure, like, they were threatening in the winter to shut his heat off because he was
How
struggling
could your
that
mom
bad.
go after him for child support for you?
So actually, so my biological father paid child support.
Okay.
And that's why, and I asked my dad one time, I was like, why didn't you love me enough to, and I was really upset because it's like he adopted my oldest sister and everything. And he's like, we needed the child support from your dad. Because my mom always wanted a new car and my dad always wanted to keep her happy. My mom, I would go up into a spare room of hers when she was alive, when I would come home to visit, and I'd have to clean out the spare room, and there were bags upon bags upon bags of Victoria's Secret pants and stuff like that, not even opened. There was like 30, 40 pairs that I saw one time, not even open. She didn't even wear them. And those pants aren't cheap. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, you can afford this? But then I never knew my grandparents bought the townhome for her. So she was just paying them back whatever she felt like at the time.
Hmm.
So she didn't have bills. She didn't have a mortgage, she didn't have rent. Yes, she still had her utilities and all this other kind of stuff, but that's pennies compared to having to pay a mortgage. Like my dad sat there and tried so hard. Like he did not want to bring my mom back to court. He tried so hard because he worked for Ford when Ford was still in Minnesota. He made what I make now in the 90s. So he was pretty well off. Like if there wasn't spending habits and all this other kind of crap going on in their lives, they lived comfortably. But my dad also worked 70, 80 hours a week. But my dad also sat there and made sure he had time to go to he would be able to take time off to go to my choir concert, to show up for graduation. He made sure of that kind of stuff. And he made sure he was always there. And that's what people don't understand is when a mom has custody of the kids and then they bitch about the dad not seeing them, but then it's okay, well, has he called to see them other than visitation? Well, yeah, of course. And what do you tell them? No, it's not in the agreement. That's on you then.
Yeah.
I would love for the ex to live in the same state so I could just go out for an hour on my own. Not have to be like, oh, well, I have to find a babysitter. Or I would love to be able to go to Renfest and be able to have a whole day just to go do that or go to the state fair.
I had the issue of you're holding the children from me because I wouldn't drive them all the way out there. You're holding the children from me. You're not letting me have a relationship with my children.
Oh, my ex thought I was going to drive all the way to where he is.
Mm-mm.
You chose to live there, just like I chose to live here. I'll meet you halfway. There were times I even drove further until finally I looked at him and I said, I can't, you gotta meet me a little bit closer.
Yeah.
And especially, no offense, trying to drive through Kansas City. I don't understand how you guys do it. I ain't doing it.
Okay, I feel bad because Chash has not had a lot to say in this, so I want to bring her in.
I'm just writing notes. Like, I'm
Chash,
just listening at this point.
yes, I know, but
She's a pretty princess. She ain't got nothing to say about that.
Chash, of course, is not a single parent. She's not a parent at all.
No.
However, she has been a nanny.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I call it personal child care.
same difference. So,
Oh my gosh.
so
It
I
makes it
know
sound a
it's
little
not
nicer.
the same. I know it's not the same as raising a child. However,
Mm-hmm.
you got to experience firsthand the difficulties of, doing the chores when the baby was asleep, cleaning the
Well,
bottles, getting the food ready.
yeah, I pretty much, my kids ranged, and I call them my kids because I did raise them. You know, even if it was for a year or less, I still raised them.
You did, because you probably spent more time with them during the day than the parents got to.
Yeah, there's a particular family, Laura, you know the exact family I'm probably thinking of, that I was with them for I was with them for almost 2 years. They ended up leaving, what was it, August of this year or some shit like
Oh,
that.
is it the one I know of?
Last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, it was last year.
Yeah. But I did everything with him. I even started potty training with him, and like his dad was the most like I don't give a shit kind of dad. Where it didn't matter what I was doing as long as it was like, hey, we're going to the park. All right, cool. I told you where we were going and didn't give a rat's ass, about anything else.
I'm playing devil's advocate here. It may not have been that he didn't care. It may have just been, well, you're here to do a job, just do it.
I was teaching him please and thank you. He was I got him before he was 2. So he was 1 and then I had him a little bit as a 2-year-old. So I was already teaching him please and thank you. I was teaching him to ask for things instead of just, demanding them. I would sit with him and he would throw a tantrum and I'd, calm him down and be like, why are we crying? What's going on? And really work with him through all of that instead of just, I'm going to throw things and boo hoo and we're going to have a tantrum.
In all fairness, I have to say, as a single mother, I missed a lot of those moments. I did, and I wish I would have had the
Yeah.
opportunity to work at home with a nanny in my house. But yeah, I missed all that because I was working 60 hours a week.
Yep.
I
Um, go
I
ahead.
can relate because when COVID hit and I started my new job, I worked 50 some hours a week, and then I'd get home, not be clocked in, and I'd still be working. There were times where I didn't even realize Liam would be trying to talk to me
Mm-hmm.
because I was so focused on work. And then it hit me the next year when it slowed down a little bit, but Liam was trying to show me something he did at school. And I was like, hold on. And I'm trying to text back a customer, and he didn't care anymore. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And after that, I was like, no, you guys, you don't pay me for this. I'm not clocked in. So I just, after I clock out now, seeing how sad my son was because I wasn't paying attention, no, it's not worth making sure I keep a customer anymore.
Yeah. And then I had kids, 4 months, sometimes younger. So taking care of them was definitely an experience. I had, two that didn't particularly enjoy nap time. I had one that hated her diaper being changed. It's little things. My most recent was fighting nap time and learning to walk, and just wanted to be all up in my business, and then would immediately not want anything to do with me. But of course, they're children, they're going to go do things they're not supposed to do, which means climbing on chairs and getting on top of a baby table. He did that. But again, all of the parents that I had, all of them at least had one or both of them working from home. So technically, I was never like alone to a point. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, they go and run errands, or, maybe it was one of those days where, yeah, nobody else was home besides me and the child. So those days I thought were a little bit easier because I didn't feel like I had this pressure of, oh, well, shit, if the kid's crying, the parents are going to come run out and see what they can do.
So
So, nope, go ahead.
have any of you ever heard of single parent stress syndrome?
No.
I probably have it.
Jericho, do you know anything about this?
Oh, well, I heard it called a single mom syndrome, not single parent. But yeah.
Single parent stress syndrome, also known as SPSS, is a term used to describe the stress and pressure experienced by single parents. It encompasses the emotional, physical, and mental strain that arises from the responsibilities of raising children alone. Juggling work, household chores, finances, and parenting are can often become overwhelming, leading to increased stress levels. SPSS is not a diagnosable mental health condition. Rather, it is a term used to acknowledge and address the unique stressors faced by single parents, which can significantly impact their overall well being if not properly managed. So, this article goes on to ask what causes it, and obviously, it's stresses of being a single parent, right?
Kids.
Kids! I'll go for
Yeah.
that one. Um, Obviously, parenting alone without a support system is a big uh, cause
Well,
of
they
stress.
say it takes a village to raise a child, and they're not wrong.
I agree.
I mean, it takes so many, like, if we were all just doing it by ourselves, nobody would have children.
It's not even that. It's also, it depends on the type of environment you have around you. Like, yeah, I have siblings. I have a couple work friends, but it's no one I could leave Titus with.
Right.
Yeah.
And partly the reason why I can't leave my siblings with Titus is, like, I could leave Liam at home and know everything would be fine.
Yeah.
Titus, I can't. And it's not that I don't trust my siblings. It's just the oldest. Yeah, I would leave Titus with her in a heartbeat because she's an occupational therapist. She
Nice.
deals with Titus all the time.
Uh-huh.
Well, kids like Titus
Tituses.
all the time.
Hmm.
Tituses. But
Oh my god, that's a scary thought.
she's
Just
busy.
multiple
She
of
is
one Titus running around.
yeah, she is always doing something. Either both of her kids are in college now, frickin' they're on trips or whatever, and she also lives over an hour away.
Mm.
I know if I asked her and said, "Look, I've been struggling. I need a day to myself." Yeah, she'd probably do it. But I'm not that close with her.
Have,
All of my other siblings, eh.
have any of you
Mhm.
ever noticed how exhausting it can be to make all of the decisions?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those things where I had to decide which doctor Liam was going to. I had to decide when we decided we wanted to move out of the apartment. The biggest reason why I agreed to move into where we are now is because of the school district. I had to make all those decisions. When the IEP comes, I have to make all the decisions.
Oh, I hated IEPs.
I have to speak up and say, no, look, this is what he's struggling with. No, this is what we're struggling with. I need help. But because technically Sean's their stepfather, which is what it says on all the paperwork, because it's just fucking easier than explaining the whole situation, we just leave it. I still have to make all the decisions.
Right.
I don't call the ex because I'm sorry, to me, I feel like he doesn't care. He doesn't call the kids. He and if he calls me, like the last time he called was about a book. Not, hey, how are the kids? How are you? How's everything? I had a really rough time one time. Titus was freaking out. He was hitting things, throwing things. He punched me 4 or 5 times. I'm bawling my eyes out. And I call him and I'm like, you need to come get him. And he talked to Titus quick. Titus calmed down a little bit. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need a fucking break. And it kind of was like falling on deaf ears, I felt, because he's just like, well, I don't know what you want me to do. I was like, you told me last year that you were that you thought it was a great idea for you to move up here. I was like, I was even willing, if you lived in the same city, to do 50-50, which means we agree that anything the kids need, we split 50-50. So I have to pay 50%, you have to pay 50%. They need glasses. Guess what? $300. I pay $150. You pay $150. But you're not paying child support for anything because they're spending 50% of the time with me, 50% of the time with you. I was fine with doing that. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there waiting for him to tell me, hey, I'm moving up there. Because we were even going to let him stay here for a couple months until he got on his feet. Do you know how uncomfortable that is?
Very.
But it wasn't good enough, I don't think. And it sucks because he's a great dad. He really is. Like I don't talk bad about, like, if me and Sean are having a conversation and all of a sudden it's going south, like I cut it off and said either we'll go outside and discuss this or we'll wait till the kids are sleeping or when they're not around. Because I'm not going to put a negative thought about their father in their head. If they get negative thoughts, that's on them based off of what he does. But I'm not going to do that because I know what it feels like to have someone talking bad about someone you love and you feel like you're in the middle. And if you show that you love that person, it's like you're betraying the other parent when you're not.
So a lack of support, a lack of social support, and loneliness is also identified as a stressor. And I think the fact that you feel isolated and alone in raising
And
your kids is a stressor.
part of it is
Go ahead,
part of it is
Jessie.
I put myself in that predicament to a point because of the fact that I cut off a lot of the people I was friends with because they were stagnant in their life. They were content not progressing as a person.
Mm.
And it was, let's go out and party, let's go do this, let's go do. I'm sorry, I'm 36 years old. My ass is too old for that shit. And I don't want to go get drunk. So then all of a sudden things started, like, I have a support system, it's just they're all on the internet. So I can't call you up, Laura, or Chesh up, be like, can you please take the kids for a couple hours?
Right.
I need to go get my
Which
nails
you
done.
know I would happily do.
Yeah, but it's a different type of support system where if I'm freaking out, I know I can call either of you on Discord, be bawling my eyes out, and you'll let me vent.
Yeah, I do understand what you're talking about
Mhm.
with like the loneliness and the isolation, because there were definitely moments when taking care of the kids where I was just like, I had zero interaction with like any kind of adult, and it was just me and the baby all day, every single day. And it was just like, I'm losing my absolute mind. Like
And
you,
then
I
you go
can't
home
have a
to your
proper
apartment
adult Yep, and I would go home to my apartment, and I have my cat because at the time, I, single. It, didn't. At the end of the day, all I wanted to do was come on here and play video games or whatever, or just go to bed. But it's that routine, and I was just like, I need an adult. Like I need an adult conversation. I need something. I need mental stimulation because it was the same thing day in and day out. I felt like I was going crazy.
Oh, I remember that. So, understanding the impact of SPSS, it says here that the effects of single parent stress syndrome can extend beyond the parent themselves and impact the entire family dynamic. Children are especially vulnerable to the consequences of their parents' stress levels. However, worrying about the impact of your stress on your children will not help the situation. So it can become a toxic cycle of stress and worrying about the impact of your stress, leading to more stress. I feel that. I feel like my children were very in tune with when I was stressed.
Oh, yeah, no. Any baby like I've worked with, they immediately could tell. And it was just like, all right, cool. Well, if I'm stressing, you're stressing, we're gonna power through it.
Being a single parent is infinitely harder than being a coupled parent. And,
Mm-hmm.
the core of the single parent issue and why some parents are able to maintain that and just push through while other ones break down and lose themselves or feel like they need a break all the time has to do with the core of the character, the person who they are. It doesn't necessarily mean one person's better than the other, but it's just the core of how you do things, right? Like in the military, there's some people who just aren't cut out for the military. It doesn't mean that they couldn't fight in a war or that they couldn't do the things necessary to be a soldier. It's not who they are, and therefore everything they do is going to be at a loss or a struggle because it's simply not something that is naturally akin to their beliefs or their willpower or whatever skills that are lacking that makes it a good soldier versus a bad one. But the same thing goes with parenting. Like I know people who are like, well, it's hard and I have to raise all these kids and they stress me out, and I go, okay, then why'd you have the kids? And they'll say something like, well, at the time I didn't know that I was going to be divorced or whatever. And it sounds on paper like a great excuse, but in reality that means nothing. That's like me saying, oh, well, at the time, I got stung by bees and I didn't go into anaphylactic shock, so I just kept getting stung by bees because, I figured, what the hell? And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I'm an anaphylactic shock. This sucks. How would I supposed to know? Well, duh, stupid. That's a natural outcome. So the same thing goes with people and their kids. Like when someone tells me, well, I wasn't expecting my husband to cheat on me, and I go, then you didn't know your husband, which means that's your fault. You can blame them for the action, but it's your fault for not doing the research. No one spontaneously cheats. No one spontaneously turns into a douchebag. That doesn't happen. They were that way when you met them. They were that way when you were in courtship. You overlooked things or thought you could change it or whatever excuse you want to make, but ultimately it's your fault, right? Unless you're dating a psychopath who literally is a different person and they've manipulated to the point that you don't understand, that's even that there's signs. There's other manipulations. There's a wake of destruction behind a person. Not everyone's a mastermind and a super spy. So being a single parent, most people I find that struggle with it, not all people, but most people I find who struggle with it are people who simply don't want the responsibility of being a parent. And they're not superhuman, they're not special, they don't have superpowers. They just chose to do it. So getting stressed happens to everybody. I was there too. But it's what you do about it. How do you make your situation better? Do you double down? Do you buckle up and get it done? Or do you try to find an easy way out? Which brings us back to what we're talking about. So many people, even nowadays, use their kids as weapons because they're lazy. They don't want to work. They don't want to have to try. They want someone else to take the responsibility from them. So they find legal ways to push their responsibilities on other people. Our personal experiences aside, I mean, you've seen the ramifications of it. You've seen the children as the fallout of these kind of people. And I mean, that's what this talk
I
is
think with
about.
those type of people, they look at children as property to a point,
Oh
being
yeah,
like, "Oh well, you I have two kids with you, so you need to pay for those two kids, and and I'm gonna work the bare minimum." I could only work a part-time job. I could probably decide not to work at all, come up with some reason, find some doctor to write, "Oh, well, because of her mental health, she can't work," and get all this government assist. But that's not who I am, because I want my children to have the best life that we can give them. And yeah, do I feel like I fail because I didn't go to college and I don't make all this much money? And yeah, I do. But when Liam sits there and says, "Oh, mom, you're the bestest mommy in the world," at least for that moment, I feel like I'm doing something right.
So, the takeaway that I have from this conversation, 3 points. One, your stress as a single parent is completely understandable, and if you're feeling overwhelmed, you are not alone. Two, I cannot pour from an empty cup. And three, children are not a weapon. That will be it for today's podcast. Please join in the conversation in the comments below.
Like, follow, subscribe, share.
Join us again in 2 weeks when we discuss the topic of abortion. Goodbye.
Bye.